everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. So it looks like Russia is probably going to invade Ukraine. Biden addressed the nation about an hour ago, saying that he is convinced, as you can see here, convinced Putin will invade Ukraine. I probably should have done a video about this before, but it's like one of those things. Like I remember when coronavirus was first starting up, and there were like these little reports, and I didn't really take it too seriously until things started getting crazy over here, and I think the same thing has happened with this. I knew it was a serious situation. I want to say it was last weekend that the State Department told Americans that they should evacuate Ukraine within 24 to 48 hours, which would have been Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday anyway. They were thinking that Russia could attack during the Olympics, and just things seem to be getting more and more serious, and today it seems like it's the most serious that it's been, and so I just want to talk about it. Okay, so on Twitter, there's this tweet from Jennifer Griffin. It says, senior U.S. defense official, the weight of evidence points to the strong possibility of a significant invasion. I guess that's in contrast to them just taking parts of Ukraine, or, because, okay, let's look at the map here. So here's Ukraine. A good portion of the border touches Russia. Russia already took this part down here. They annexed Crimea, but that was back in 2014. And there's some eastern parts of the country, specifically right here, Luhansk and Donetsk, that it seems like they're very in favor of Russia. There's a lot of separatists that are there. That's where a lot of the fighting has happened since 2014. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, if it happens, maybe they would just kind of like annex some more, or I don't know. It's so hard for me to believe that they would actually go to Kyiv and do a change, or a regime change, so to speak. Now, if you don't really understand what's happening here, this is probably the best way I've heard it explained. Okay, Ukraine is to Russia, roughly, as Canada is to the United States. Okay, Putin views everyone that used to be part of the Soviet Union basically as countrymen, still related, the same culture and stuff like that, and that includes Ukraine. Just like how the United States and Canada have a common origin in Britain, and there's this kind of family of English-speaking countries. There's the United States and the British Commonwealth, which includes, I think Ireland's included in the British Commonwealth, but Canada, there's some Caribbean islands. You also have South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, right? Actually, I think Jamaica is part of the British Commonwealth, along with a few others. Anyway, so it's as though, we had lost the Cold War, and Canada was suddenly talking about becoming a communist country and joining the Soviet Union, or becoming a satellite state of the Soviet Union. If that happened to us, we would probably be really upset about that, right? Because essentially, Ukraine, it's been wanting, the people, from what I understand, they've been wanting to have more ties to Western Europe with the European Union, as well as join NATO. Now, that's kind of a red line for Moscow, because again, it's like that reverse situation. If Canada wanted to join the Soviet Union or become a satellite state and like have a military alliance with Russia, right? All of a sudden we'd have just like a hostile enemy all along our northern border. So, it makes sense, I guess what they're wanting to do, I would be amazed if they actually take Kyiv and then if they change out the government. Um, there's people that are talking about. Okay, let me read you a few statements from a couple different websites. Okay, so here's the situation here. This is older. This is from the 10th, so it's about a week old. And actually, I'm hearing reports today. I'm sorry I don't have it up, but I've heard reports because I watch some other YouTube channels as I work. But talking about how there are now attack helicopters that are now within minutes of the border, positioned to within minutes of the border, which is one of the last phases before an invasion. It's like one of the last pieces that you put in place before you initiate the invasion. So, okay, so there's this graphic. All these black or red circles and black triangles, these are all Russian troops or Russian, forces. You can see that Ukraine is almost completely surrounded. I would say probably 60 to 70% surrounded, more or less. Okay, so look at this. Okay, toggle cursor. Okay, this is from CSIS, Center for Strategic and International Studies. And they say this will be the first time since World War II that Russia's ground forces will face a modern mechanized opponent, and its air forces will face an opponent with modern air force and air defense systems. Consequently, Russian forces will likely face notable challenges in command, control, communications, and coordinations. So, up until this point, Russia has been involved militarily in different places, including Afghanistan. They did the whole Afghanistan thing back during the Cold War. But this is like the first time that they're facing modern equipment, modern forces. Even though Ukraine doesn't really stand a chance, it's not going to be, it's not going to be as easy as some other countries would be. Here's another statement here. Russia's seizure of Crimea was the first time since World War II. So this is back in 2014. Russia's seizure of Crimea was the first time since World War II that a European state annexed the territory of another. And I remember when that happened because I was shocked. I realized that. I was like, are you kidding me? Are they really doing this? I think there's a danger in us being complacent and thinking that everything's okay now and that everything's going to stay okay. And I feel like that's kind of an attitude that a lot of us had ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, that now we had entered this new era, this like utopia era, even though there were still conflicts, like there was never going to be any other major wars or certainly nothing happening in Europe with like doing something like this. But lo and behold, look, that's what happened. They took, for all intents and purposes, they basically invaded Crimea. I know there's debate over this. Russia would tell you something different, that there was a referendum and they're just liberating these people and they voted to be part of Russia. And probably some of them did, but this was basically taken by force. And this area over here that we were just talking about, Donetsk and Luhansk, I guess that's part of the Donbas region. I don't know if that's like a province, like this whole area here, but there's been a lot of fighting there since that time. But the idea that Russia might actually invade the country, and like what Jennifer Griffin was saying, the possibility of a significant invasion, holy cow. We cannot assume that we're past the World War II days and the Cold War days, in that large wars like this between first world countries could happen again, right? Because you have all like the Tom Clancy novels, which are really good, by the way, that would kind of put out like these different scenarios. A lot of them were written during the Cold War or during the 90s as well. Just kind of like playing with the idea of like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And so I think a lot of people became used to the idea that, oh, well, that's just fiction. Stuff like that will never happen. And this is a really bad situation because we can't tell what's going to happen or if this could in some way escalate beyond just Russia and Ukraine. Now, I'm no expert, but I have heard talk about that there is potential. If I were to guess, I would say no. I would say no. It probably will remain, the conflict will probably remain confined to Russia and Ukraine, but anything could happen. We just have to watch and see. That's all that we can do. That's like one of the themes on this channel. All we can do, we can talk about things until we're blue in the face, but all we can do is watch and see what actually happens. So, and then there's this statement here. This is AtlanticCouncil.org. They say events in 2014 have made it obvious that Russia will go to almost any length in order to reestablish control over Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin's obsession with Ukraine has already cost more than 14,000 lives and plunged the world into a new Cold War. Which I feel like that's a little bit of an overstatement. The Cold War, there's nothing like it. I hate it when people use terms like this because it kind of like devalues the idea, right? The Cold War, nothing has matched it since. This is not a new Cold War. So you should say something that plunge the world into like a new little Cold War or something like that. Anyway, he is now threatening to launch a major invasion that could spark the most devastating European conflict since World War II. That was a long time ago. World War II was a long time ago. So I feel like we have to watch this and consider this yet another sign of the times. Now, there's a few other things. I wanted to read some of this. This is from understandingwar.org, the Institute for the Study of War, ISW. Russia-Ukraine warning update. New indicators of imminent Russian attack. This is from today. This is recent. Okay. Russia may launch an attack on Ukraine on Saturday, February 19th, 2022. That's tomorrow. The attack would likely begin with an air and missile campaign targeting much of Ukraine to decapitate the government and degrade the Ukrainian military, as well as the ability of Ukrainian citizens to prepare to resist a subsequent Russian invasion. U.S. and allied governments have been warning of such an attack for some days, pointing to the size of the Russian forces concentrated on Ukraine's borders. Ukraine officials have additionally said that Russian troops have moved to jumping off positions. I think that's like what I was talking about with the helicopters, but probably not limited to just helicopters, but probably all different types of units, for an invasion over the past 24 hours. Okay, so today, let me zoom in here. So this was written today. And they're saying that within the last 24 hours, troops have been getting into this jumping off position, or there's a word I'm looking for. Posture. The following additional conditions and indicators point to February 19th as an optimal date for a Russian attack. And by the way, this group right here, they've been more conservative in their outlook and stuff. So the fact that they're like saying this stuff means that they feel pretty sure. This is not like typical of them. Okay, number one, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be in Germany at the Munich Security Conference. He is scheduled to speak at 15:30 Munich time. His absence from the Ukraine will degrade his ability to coordinate a response to any Russian attack and create more propitious circumstances for a Russian-sponsored attempt at a coup d'etat. Russian forces could close Ukrainian airspace to prevent Zelensky from returning to Kyiv. Yeah. Jeez. Okay. My gosh. Yeah. Okay. Number 2, Russian President Vladimir Putin will reportedly oversee Russian nuclear drills on Saturday, February 19th as well. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko will accompany Putin. Because Belarus, they have troops there. It's supposedly military drills, like joint military training drills. Okay, let's go back here. Those drills are being conducted out of the usual exercise cycle and are clearly intended... Oh, they're out of the usual. Okay, those drills, those supposed training drills, are being conducted out of the usual exercise cycle and are clearly intended to deter any Western response to an attack. Putin and Lukashenko will observe the exercises from an unspecified situational center in Moscow, likely the Russian Ministry of Defense's National Defense Control Center, or NDCC. That would put them in the best position to oversee conventional military operations as well. Launching the attack during those drills would take maximal advantage of their deterrent effect. Number 3, Russian proxy provocations in eastern Ukraine have increased dramatically since February 16th, including an artillery barrage that damaged a kindergarten in unoccupied Ukraine and multiple other proxy attacks. Russian proxies have increased the frequency and drama of their claims of Ukrainian attacks on them. And this is the whole thing. I don't want to say the phrase because I think YouTube still kind of looks down on it, but like when you pretend that an attack happens by somebody else, but it's actually yourself so that you can justify yourself to attack. So on them, as well as their false claims that Ukraine is preparing to invade occupied Donbass. Russia's proxies in Donbass began evacuating civilians to Russia ahead of a claimed Ukrainian offensive. Russian senior officials, including Putin, have been increasingly repeating and expanding on those claims this week. The proxy campaign is likely intended, on the one hand, to draw Ukrainian forces into a response that Russia would then claim to be an attack, and then, on the other, use this phrase, attacks, and outright disinformation to fabricate justifications for a Russian attack to, quote-unquote, defend, quote-unquote, Russian citizens in occupied Donbass. This rhetorical and kinetic activity has crossed thresholds, pointing to the likelihood of an actual Russian attack. This update reflects a change to our assessments and forecasts. We have previously assessed that Putin was setting conditions to move Russian forces overtly into occupied Donbass and possibly conduct a limited invasion and occupation southeastern Ukraine and or an air/missile campaign. We now assess that those Russian activities are extremely likely and imminent, and that a much larger scale Russian invasion is very possible. So, pray for Ukraine. They are almost certainly going to go through a horrible experience pretty soon, and who knows how much of this map right here is going to stay the same. No idea. Maybe anything's possible. If I had to guess, I would guess that they would probably try and change the government. But if they did that, that means that they would have to somehow enforce the new government. Because it's not like you can just sign a treaty, walk away, and then be like, okay, now remember, you signed. They'd have to do something to make sure that that new government stays in place. So I don't know how you would take care of that problem other than just keeping the country. I don't know, or you could divide the country, maybe take this eastern part, this river or whatever this is right here. I don't know if it's a lake or river. That looks like a good border, maybe, if they took like this side of it, significantly reducing the size of Ukraine. I don't know. I don't know. Now, I have a video scheduled for tomorrow that's going to be talking about the 10 lost tribes. And regardless of what your view is on the 10 lost tribes, I think that this kind of plays into this because you'll remember I did a video about this article right here, tracing the dispersion. Let me read just a little part of it, okay? And you'll see how this plays in. Linguists generally agree that these changes began taking place, meaning changes in language, because of the Israelites that fled from Assyria and fled the group that was able to maintain its identity and head north. Okay, so changes began taking place sometime after 700 BC, which was after the Assyrian invasion, and that the influence causing the sound shift continued to affect the Germanic dialects for several centuries, at least until 400 BC, and possibly as late as the Christian era. Unfortunately, scholars have not been able to agree upon what caused these changes or where the original homeland of the peoples may have been, which he's guessing in this article that it's the Israelites that caused all these changes, had their effect on the languages of Europe at the time. Scholars have traced them to the Black Sea area and to the Caucasus Mountains. If we go back to the map, that's right here. Here's the Black Sea. These are the Caucasus Mountains. They kind of cross this strait from northwest to southeast, and kind of like that type of direction. So it's not hard to imagine. It doesn't matter what theory you hold to. It does seem like a main group came up through here between these two seas, Black Sea and Caspian Sea. And then specifically, it was talking about how there were a lot of like different names around here in Ukraine, on like the north shore of the Black Sea. Also kind of over here, the north shore of the Caspian Sea. So the main group, they came up through here, and there were probably a lot or good number of people that maybe stayed in this region. Remember Sister Nelson? She said that this was in 2016 when they were in Russia and they were having a meeting over there. There were all those different tribes from all the different tribes except for Levi. From there, they traveled down to Armenia, which is right here, and there was a member of the church here that was from Levi. So it'd be interesting if we have a lot of kind of like the other tribes that are over here, like in Eastern Europe, and in the Slavic, Russian, Baltic kind of area, like right here. Whereas it would seem to me that there's been a lot of Ephraim that's come over here, and especially into the British Isles, but, probably some of the other tribes as well. But it'd be interesting if there was like a heavier concentration over in this part of Europe, and that's why you have those different tribes that are showing up. And you'll have to watch for the video tomorrow, because I kind of expand on that. There were some pretty surprising statements by Brad Wilcox. That's what the video is going to be about. But anyway, my point is that this interesting region where it seems that the 10 lost tribes have occupied at one point, and a lot of their descendants are probably still here, are going to be involved in this conflict. And we've noted how wars and conflicts in the world have had an influence on people leaving those areas as refugees to other areas. We've talked about Afghanistan and the Pashtuns, and how a lot of them, now that the Taliban's back in control, they've left Afghanistan after having been there for thousands of years. Now they're coming to the United States and other Western countries. What's going to happen to Ukraine? The Lord usually allows stuff like this to happen, but then, uses them for good. And so what might come out of this in regards to, people that are among the 10 lost tribes in this area? Don't know. All we can do is just wait and see. All right, that's all that I have for this one. So this is my video about what's happening, and it sounds like maybe tomorrow we might be seeing a different world than what we know right now. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions, additional information in the comments below. Also make sure to share this with anyone that will find this interesting, and I'll talk to you guys later.